Alright, in this section we're going to mix natural light with HMI and tungsten light. It's a DP's nightmare in a certain circumstance, because the last thing you want to do is have natural light coming through, flooding through in this case, through a garage door, and then have to mix it with HMI and tungsten light. We're going to try to go for the hardest thing possible. We're going to mix in all different kinds of lighting, and we're going to try to see if we can come out victorious at the end. Let's see what happens. The first step is to bring the background closer to the garage door opening right there. We're going to use the natural light flooding in from the sunlight outside. The second step is to make sure that we have the proper blue gels or CTB to put onto our tungsten lights to make it match with that natural light. Just to see if we have a daylight correction gel or if we have a color effect gel, which are two totally different things. And also so we can find out what grade of gel we have. Do we have a full or quarter or a half? That's the best use for those swatches. That's why you always want to have one in your kit. Now let's go ahead and get back to the set. Take the 2K down. Okay. That's a good idea. Always remove the barn doors first before they fall on somebody.
There you go.
You need it lower than this?
No, that's fine.
You're hot.
Striking. Watch your eyes.
What are you doing there?
Flooding and spotting, flood and spot. Just checking to make sure that it works.
What's that stand called?
Baby Junior?
Baby Junior.
Do you want to put CTB on first? Or you want to show them?
We're gonna put the CTB on, get it worked in right, and then we'll remove the CTB,
Okay.
just to kind of make it easier, make life easier. What are you doing over here?
Nothing. I'm hooking up the HMI light, which is a little different than the other lights because you need to plug into a ballast.
And a ballast is that thing that he's plugging into right there, which is essentially just a big transformer. It transforms 110, 120 AC current that comes in like a household current into a very high voltage DC source, which is what the HMI requires. The HMI requires a high voltage DC source, unlike your regular, for instance, AC tungsten lamps like the regular 2Ks and the 650s we've been using up till now. Oh, cool, thanks.
You know, you see the light start to get hotter. Hey, I did this HMI all by myself.
Son of a... You plugged it in? You're kidding me. And you flipped the switch?
So the HMI is warming up over here, reaching temperatures exceeding those that mankind can tolerate. Now as the 400 watt HMI warms up, we're going to go ahead and make sure we unplug the 2K standard tungsten light, and we're going to put some full CTB gel on it to make it reach the same color temperature as the HMI and daylight. Yeah, like that. That's good. That way we can still have control over it. Because when you clip it with the gel inside the light, you can still get control over the spread of the light and what it's hitting. And whenever you're ready, just go ahead and plug it in.
Striking.
Striking. You're hot.
And as you can see now, we have blue color coming out of there, which matches our daylight outside. So now we need a silk to diffuse some of this light. So he's resetting the C-stand over here, making it ready for transport. So he's got a balanced load right now. He's got a sandbag in one hand and a C-stand in the other. It's healthier, easier on the back to balance your load, rather than just carrying a C-stand with one hand.
Make sure to put it on the highest leg. Sweet. help me out with this? These spreaders are. Can we get these spreaders in?
So we are moving in the HMI as a rim light on her from this side. We can see that right there. The rim light.
You don't want it spilling onto the background, right?
No. Yeah, please. There we go. Thank you. Beautiful. Can you bring in those barn doors and reduce the intensity of that HMI?
Bring in the barn door?
Yeah, so you can reduce, or either that or drop in a double or something like that.
Talking about for flare or?
Well, it's too hot on her. It's too hot.
Bring it down? Okay.
Yeah, so you can
We have
either
a
move it
Scrim.
back 6 feet,
Bring it back?
bring it back 6 feet, drop in a double, or put an ND in front of it or a net or something.
More?
That looks about right. Then we can just use a double net in front of it. Notice how it used to look before. It was incredibly hot on the left side of her face right there, and it was really kind of taking over the frame. And of course, the intensity of the light is the inverse square of its distance from the subject, which means that if you have the light about 6 feet away from the subject and you move it back another 6 feet, which is double the distance, you're actually reducing its intensity by 4 times. That's the inverse square. If it's 6 feet away from the subject and you want to only cut it by half, you just move it away 3 more feet, that'll cut it by half. That's equivalent to 1 stop less light, but if you want to cut it by 2 stops, which is 75% less light, you move it double the distance, which is another 6 feet. So now we've also gone and added a double net, which is that red rimmed net. That's a double net, which is going to knock it down an additional stop. So that looks really nice now. That's exactly what we were looking for. It's just the right amount of intensity. Okay, now we've got that shadow again on the background.
Okay.
Let's try to fix that.
Still there?
No, that's good. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. So we've got a book, and let's see how that looks. That looks nice. Are you able to cross your legs, put your right leg over your left? Can you, yeah, like that. Thank you. That's nice. Okay. Just like that. That's beautiful. So we've got her reading a book right there. And that's how we mix in daylight right there. Very intense daylight with tungsten and HMI. Go ahead and swing out the silk.
Swinging out the silk.
So notice what happens when we take away that 2-stop silk right there. The tungsten 2K ceases to become a fill light and it becomes a key light, creating the hardest shadow on the set. So make sure that when you use a 2K like this as a fill light to diffuse it properly so that it doesn't create any new additional shadows or major shadows like this in this case and becomes the key light. Now watch what happens when we take away the CTB and make that light yellow again. Now swing out the silk and remove the CTB, please.
CTB is falling out.
Okay, let's keep it on that just for a second. Hold that. This is no silk, no CTB. Okay, now just swing in the silk.
Silk in.
So now watch what happens when we make that 2K into a soft fill light again. It's actually not bad when you think about it. When you combine a little bit of the tungsten light with the HMI and the daylight, it doesn't look bad at all. The key is, of course, to make sure that the tungsten light acts as a fill light and not as a key light. If it acts as a key light, it's, you know, like this bright spot right in her face and it doesn't look good. But when it's diffused, it becomes a fill light and it adds a lot of ambiance. It enriches the skin tone, it adds a lot of warmth. It's really, really nice. So now that we've learned how to use that, we're going to go ahead and turn it off. We're We're going to go ahead and look at this just with the key light, which is the daylight coming in through the garage door, and the rim light, which is the HMI on the left side. This is with no fill light right here. So now you may prefer this look, which has deeper shadows, the features aren't being filled in. It's a more contrasty type scene. But we're going to go ahead and turn on the 2K again, and there it is at 3200 degrees Kelvin. And now we're going to correct it, make the light white for 5500 degrees Kelvin. And that's what it looks like when you put in the CTB. Now we're going to again swing in the silk and show you from scratch exactly how to rebuild this whole setup. So we went from having an uncorrected 2K tungsten to having it with CTB and then swinging in the silk so we can look at it diffused as a fill light. And there's the final frame. So now we know how to create two different looks. A natural look by the use of the CTB corrected tungsten light, and also by using just a tungsten fill that's uncorrected just to warm up the skin tones a little bit and make it look a little bit different. All you would really need to do is put in a reading lamp right next to her, like a little kind of practical reading lamp, and that would create the motivation for that tungsten light being there, and it would warm up the skin tones and make it look a little bit nicer. Okay, and power down the 2K.
Striking 2K.
Okay, now let's look at the rim light. Let's go over the rim light real quick, please. Let's swing out that net.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Net out.
Thank you.
Net in.
Thank you.
Net out.
Okay, go back out and come back in to that position.
It's out.
Swing it in. And hold it. Alright, so we just created so many different looks by just the use of essentially two lights at this point and natural daylight. Daylight, of course, being our key, and then using a fill light. This is the look that we're going to get. It's a really nice look, but we also get a whole different look by also using a rim light from the left side to make an edge around the subject and separator from the background as well, too. Now, just that 2K.
2K corrected with silk, right? Striking.
Hardly anything. This is just fill and key. One of the purposes of this exercise is also to prove to you that even a 2000 watt light is hardly effective after going through a full CTB and double silk. Full CTB is going to eat up half of its intensity, and then the double silk is going to eat up another half. So you're only really outputting 25% of its original intensity, or only about 250 watts. That's why a Diva that's operating with daylight bulbs, or even a 200 watt HMI for that matter, is going to always be a much more powerful instrument than using even a 2000 watt light using 2000 watts worth of power and still only putting out 250 watts of daylight. Also, the reflector that's inside the instrument has a lot to do with everything. Watch what happens when we take a 650 watt light but has a better reflector than that 2000 watt light, and see how much more power it can give us. So we got the CTB on standby.
Want me to edge on the top or bottom?
On the bottom. Okay, so now we have the CTB, full CTB on standby, ready to go for when we're ready to actually use it. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to turn off the 2K, then turn on the 650, but with no CTB. Then we'll roll in the CTB on the 650 and show how it just completely eats it up. Give me power down the 2K.
Striking the 2K.
And power up to 650.
Striking 650.
And hold that. And give me on and off on the 650.
Striking.
And on, leave it on. Now give me the CTB on the 650. Thank you. So now we have the 650 with the CTB through the silk on only, no 2K. Okay, now give me on and off on the 650.
Striking.
Now leave it on. So So what we've learned is that a 650 watt Fresnel of recent manufacture with a better reflector can emit almost the same quantity of light as an older 2K with a lesser reflector. And that's really important because it uses only about a third of the power of a 2K, but with the same light output. Swing out the rim light, please. So this is just a 650 going through the CTB and the silk. And give me on and off on the 650.
Striking.
Okay, so taking reflected readings with our reflected meter from the camera, the background is at f2.8 and a half. That's a reflected reading using a spot meter from the camera. Her forehead is at f5.6 and a half, so it's 2 stops over the background. Now let's check the incident reading with the incident meter. Now of course the incident meter is not going to factor in absorption of skin or of the background itself. It's just going to give us a real light reading. Just make sure you don't block your light source. In this case we want to take an overall reading and we want to make sure to take in the key and always point it towards the camera with the bulb out. That'll give you an overall. If you want to take a contrast reading for each light, then you just bring in the bulb and you point it towards that light and you take each light by itself.
F2.5, f2.0 and 5/10.
Okay, give me a contrast on just your key, which is the door.
Take it.
Yes.
F5.6 and 4/10.
Okay, and can I get, Mike, can I get that rim light back up? What is it?
F2 and 5/10.
So we got all the contrast measurements for this. So now let's go ahead and swap you guys out. Remember when I told you in an earlier section that once you have a successful shoot in one place, try something different. So we set our lighting tech in that seat and had him smoke one of his cigarettes just to prove to you how important the backlights are in a situation, because I've had a lot of people ask me how to light smoke, but at the same time if you don't add a backlight you're never going to see it. So that's our original position of the light right there. We're going to go ahead and move the light. There we are right there, so that we can get a better angle on him right there. And we can backlight the smoke. We're going to bring in the net again.
Net coming in.
Thank you. And that way we have more of a backlight on our subject to illuminate that smoke. Can you blow smoke like over to this way instead? And there goes that smoke. Now we can see it because it is illuminated from this side right there, directly from behind. So as we learned earlier from the flashlight section, you can only see smoke when it's backlit or rim lighted. That's the only way you're going to be able to see it. Thanks for watching this segment.